4 verses, 18 words in Arabic, a surah so short you can recite it in seconds. But hidden inside Surah Quraysh is a secret that the scholars call the anatomy of collapse. Because this isn't just about ancient trade routes. This is about how Allah builds empires and then tests them with the very blessings He gave them. The Quraysh were untouchable. They had wealth pouring in from 2 directions. They had treaties with superpowers. They controlled the most sacred site on earth. No tribe dared attack their caravans. No enemy could threaten their city. They had everything. And then Allah sent them one man with one message. And that message didn't just challenge their beliefs. It threatened to dismantle the entire economic system they had spent generations building. What happened next is not just history, it's a warning. Because every single blessing in your life right now, your safety, your income, your comfort, it's all a test. And Surah Quraysh reveals exactly what happens when you use Allah's gifts to fight Allah's truth. To understand this surah, you need to see Makkah through the eyes of a 7th century traveler. Imagine you're walking through the Arabian desert, sand stretching endlessly in every direction. The sun so brutal, it melts your resolve. No rivers, no vegetation, just rock, dust, and heat. And then, after weeks of travel, you see it. The Valley of Makkah. And your first thought is, why would anyone live here? There's nothing, no farmland, no water sources except one miraculous well, no strategic military position. By every logical measure, this city should not exist, but it does, and it's thriving. Not despite its emptiness, but because of what stands at its center, the Kaaba. This wasn't just a building, it was the spiritual gravitational center of Arabia. Built by Ibrahim and Ismail alayhi salam thousands of years earlier as a house for the worship of Allah alone, it had been corrupted over centuries. By the time of the Quraysh, the Kaaba housed 360 idols. Every tribe had placed their god inside. Polytheism had infected Tawheed. But here's the irony. Even in their corruption, the people still felt the pull. They still came. Every year during the sacred months, tribes from Yemen, Syria, Iraq, and beyond would make pilgrimage. Not because they understood the true purpose of the Kaaba, but because something in their fitra recognized that this place was different, sacred, special. And the Quraysh saw an opportunity. They positioned themselves as the custodians of the Kaaba, the noble guardians of the Holy House. But they weren't just spiritual leaders. They were businessmen, brilliant, strategic, generational businessmen. Because where religion gathered people, commerce followed. Pilgrims needed food. They needed water. They needed places to stay. They needed goods to trade. And the Quraysh controlled all of it. They turned religious reverence into economic monopoly. They transformed spiritual gatherings into the largest marketplace in Arabia. And slowly, year by year, generation by generation, they built something unprecedented in that region. A commercial empire in the middle of nowhere. But they had a problem. Arabia was tribal, chaotic, and violent. Roads were dangerous. Caravans were constantly raided. Tribes had blood feuds that lasted decades. How do you run a trade network when the routes are soaked in banditry and war? You can't, unless you do what the Quraysh did. They created Ilaf, the system of protection treaties. And the architect of this system was a man named Hashim ibn Abd Manaf, the great-grandfather of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Hashim was a visionary. He understood that wealth isn't just about what you have, it's about what you can move. So he traveled north and south, meeting kings and tribal leaders, negotiating agreements. He went to Byzantine-controlled Syria and secured safe passage for Quraysh caravans. He went to Yemen, which was under various influences, including Persia and Abyssinia, and made similar deals. He used the religious prestige of Makkah as leverage. We are the guardians of the sacred house. We don't take sides in your wars. We remain neutral. We facilitate trade. In return, you let our caravans pass safely, and you're welcome to trade in Makkah during pilgrimage season. It was genius. The Quraysh became the Switzerland of Arabia. Neutral, protected, trusted, and their caravans, marked with specific identifiers, moved freely across lands where others would be slaughtered. The surah mentions two journeys, the winter journey and the summer journey. Rilat, Ash-Shita wa As-Saif. In winter, they traveled south to Yemen. The weather in the north was harsh, but Yemen was warm and accessible. They brought back luxury goods, frankincense, myrrh, spices, textiles, and precious items from Indian Ocean trade that flowed through Yemeni ports. In summer, they went north to Syria, to the Levant, to Byzantine markets. They brought back grain, olive oil, weapons, wines, and manufactured goods that Arabia didn't produce. Makkah became the central node, the distribution hub. They bought low in one region, transported through their protected routes, and sold high in another. Classic arbitrage on a massive scale, and the wealth poured in. We are not talking about modest profits. The caravan that Abu Sufyan led back from Syria before the Battle of Badr was worth 50,000 dinars. To put that in perspective, that's equivalent to millions in today's currency. One caravan, and they ran multiple caravans every year. The leaders of Quraysh lived in mansions. They wore silk. They owned slaves. They had political influence across the peninsula. Clans like Banu Umayyah, Banu Makhzum, and Banu Abd Shams weren't just rich, they were generationally wealthy. Their children inherited fortunes. Their grandchildren lived off investments. This was old money built on new systems, but Allah doesn't give without purpose. Every blessing is either a test or a stepping stone to a test. And the Quraysh were about to face the greatest trial any people can face. Not poverty, not war, not famine, but a prophet calling them back to the truth they had buried under their wealth. The revelation of Surah Quraysh came early during the Makkan period as a reminder. Allah is saying, look at yourselves. You live in a barren valley that should have killed you, but I fed you. I gave you trade when there was no agriculture. I gave you safety when you were surrounded by enemies. You should be nobodies, but I made you somebodies. Why? So you would worship me. فَلْيَعْبُدُوا رَبَّ هَذَا الْبَيْتِ الَّذِي أَتَمَاهُمْ مِنْ جُوعٍ وَأَمَانَهُمْ مِنْ خَوْفٍ. So let them worship the Lord of this house, who has fed them from hunger and made them safe from fear. This is the contract. I provide, you worship, I protect, you submit. Simple, clear, no ambiguity. But the Quraysh broke the contract. They took the blessings and forgot the benefactor. They worshipped the idols inside the Kaaba while claiming to honor the Kaaba itself. They prostrated to stones they carved with their own hands. They made the house of Tawheed into a museum of shirk. And worse, they turned religion into a revenue stream. The idols weren't just theology. They were business assets, because every idol represented a tribe. And every tribe that came to worship their idol spent money in Makkah. The more gods, the more pilgrims. The more pilgrims, the more profit. Then came Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, born into the clan of Banu Hashim, orphaned young, raised by his uncle Abu Talib, known throughout Makkah as Al-Amin, the trustworthy one. At 40 years old, he received the first revelation in the cave of Hira, Iqra, read in the name of your Lord who created. And his message was devastatingly simple. La ilaha illallah. There is no God but Allah. One creator, one master, one worthy of worship. Abandon the idols. Return to the fitrah. Worship as Ibrahim worshipped. To us, reading this centuries later, it sounds beautiful, pure, obvious. But to the Quraysh, it sounded like economic suicide. Because if the people abandoned the idols, why would they come to Makkah? If the Kaaba was stripped of its 360 statues, would the tribes still make pilgrimage? Would they still spend their money? Would they still respect Quraysh's neutrality? The Prophet wasn't just challenging their theology, he was threatening their entire business model, and they panicked. Not because they thought he was lying, many of them knew he was truthful. Abu Jahl, the leader of the opposition, admitted, "O Muhammad, we do not call you a liar. We know you are truthful, but we reject what you have brought." Why? Because truth is expensive. It costs you your comfort, your status, your control, and the Quraysh weren't willing to pay, so they fought back. They mocked him, they called him a poet, a madman, a sorcerer. When that didn't work, they escalated. They tortured the early Muslims. Bilal radiallahu anhu, a slave, was dragged into the desert, a boulder placed on his chest under the burning sun, whipped and beaten, all because he said, "Ahad, Ahad, one. Yasir and Sumayya were killed, becoming the first martyrs of Islam. Khabbab ibn al-Arat had hot coals placed on his back. Ammar ibn Yasir was tortured alongside his parents. The Prophet himself was strangled, had animal intestines thrown on him while he prayed, was insulted in public, and faced constant threats of assassination. But here's what's critical. The persecution wasn't random. It was strategic. The Quraysh targeted the weak first, slaves, the poor, those without tribal protection, because they knew that if they killed the Prophet, it would trigger a blood feud with Banu Hashim, and that would destabilize Makkah's entire political structure. So they applied pressure slowly. They wanted to make the cost of Islam so high that people would abandon it. They wanted to suffocate the movement before it grew. And for a while it looked like it might work. The Muslims were small in number, persecuted, marginalized and powerless. But the message kept spreading, because you can kill the messenger, but you can't kill the truth. You can torture the believers, but you can't torture the belief out of them. And every day, more people accepted Islam quietly, in their homes, in secret gatherings. The slaves heard a message of equality and dignity. The poor heard a message of justice and accountability. The youth heard a message that challenged the arrogance of their elders. And slowly, the foundation of Quraysh's society began to crack, not with violence, with truth. Then the Prophet made a decision that changed everything. He told the Muslims to migrate to Abyssinia, a Christian kingdom across the Red Sea ruled by a just king, the Najashi. Around 80 Muslims left Makkah, including Uthman ibn Affan and his wife Ruqayya, the daughter of the Prophet. The Quraysh sent a delegation to bring them back, offering bribes to the Najashi. But when the Muslims explained their faith, when they recited Surah Maryam in front of the king, he wept. He said, "This and what Jesus brought come from the same lamp." And he refused to hand them over. The first hijrah was a failure for the Quraysh. They couldn't stop Islam from spreading beyond their borders, and their trade routes, the very system that made them rich, now became a vulnerability, because ideas travel faster than goods. Muslim traders who moved along those routes began sharing the message in Syria, Yemen, and beyond. The pilgrims who came to Makkah heard whispers of a new prophet. The caravans carried more than merchandise. They carried the news of Tawheed. And the Quraysh realized that the same network they built to accumulate wealth was now being used to spread the very message they were trying to suppress. After 13 years of persecution, Allah commanded the Muslims to migrate to Medina. The hijrah wasn't an escape. It was a strategic regrouping. In Medina, the Muslims had political autonomy. They could worship openly, they could organize, they could build, and most importantly, they could defend themselves. The Prophet established the Islamic State, created treaties with the tribes of Medina, and began to consolidate power. But the Quraysh didn't leave them alone. They confiscated the property the Muslims left behind in Makkah. They threatened anyone who helped them. They sent spies and assassination attempts. So the Prophet responded with a strategy that hit the Quraysh where it hurt most: their trade routes. He began intercepting caravans, not as random banditry but as economic warfare. The Muslims had been expelled from their homes. Their wealth had been stolen. They had every right to reclaim what was taken from them, and more importantly, cutting off Quraysh's income was a way to weaken them without direct confrontation. The caravans that moved between Makkah and Syria, the same routes protected by Ilaf, were now under threat. The system that had made the Quraysh untouchable for generations was unraveling, and they knew that if the trade stopped, their entire power structure would collapse. Then came the caravan of Abu Sufyan. He was returning from Syria with a massive shipment worth 50,000 dinars, guarded by only 30 or 40 men. The Prophet marched out with 313 companions, intending to intercept it. But Abu Sufyan got word of the threat. He changed his route, moved quickly along the coast, and sent an urgent message to Makkah. "Your wealth is under attack. Come defend it." The Quraysh mobilized immediately. Over 1,000 soldiers, heavily armed, led by their best commanders. They weren't just protecting a caravan, they were protecting their entire economy, their pride, their dominance. But by the time they reached the wells of Badr, Abu Sufyan had already escaped with the caravan. The rational decision was to turn back. Mission accomplished, wealth saved, no need to fight. But pride doesn't listen to reason. Abu Jahl insisted on continuing. He said, "By Allah, we will not turn back until we reach Badr, slaughter camels, drink wine, and let all of Arabia hear that we crushed Muhammad and his followers." It wasn't about the caravan anymore. It was about sending a message, about proving that the Quraysh were still in control, about humiliating the Muslims so thoroughly that no one would dare challenge them again. And so the Battle of Badr happened. Over 1,000 Quraysh soldiers against 313 Muslims. The odds were absurd. The Muslims were poorly equipped. Many of them had never fought in a real battle. The Quraysh had cavalry, armor, experience, and numbers. By every worldly measure, it should have been a massacre. And it was, but not the way the Quraysh expected. Allah sent angels. The Muslims fought with a conviction that transcended fear. And when the dust settled, 70 of the Quraysh elite were dead. 70 were captured. Abu Jahl, the pharaoh of the Ummah, was killed. Umayyah ibn Khalaf, Utbah ibn Rabi'ah, his son and brother, commanders, noblemen, the very people who had tortured Muslims for years, they were all dead. The Quraysh limped back to Makkah, humiliated. And the message was clear. Your wealth couldn't save you, your treaties couldn't save you, your numbers couldn't save you, because when you fight against Allah, when you use the blessings He gave you to oppose His messenger, He will strip those blessings from you and turn them into your downfall. The same trade routes that made you rich became your vulnerability. The same pride that made you powerful became your destruction. Badr wasn't just a military victory, it was a divine statement, a reminder of Surah Quraysh. I gave you everything, and I can take it all away. But the Quraysh still didn't submit. They came back at Uhud with 3,000 soldiers. They came back at the Battle of the Trench with 10,000. They fought, schemed, and resisted for years. But with every battle they grew weaker. Not in wealth, they still had money, but in spirit, in unity, in belief. Because how long can you fight against something you know is true? How long can you defend a system you know is corrupt? The cognitive dissonance was breaking them, and meanwhile Islam kept growing, not through force, but through truth, through character, through the undeniable transformation in the people who accepted it. Then, 8 years after the Hijrah, the Prophet returned to Makkah, not fleeing, not begging, but with 10,000 companions, an army so large that resistance was futile. The conquest of Makkah was inevitable, and it was bloodless. The Prophet entered the city and granted general amnesty. Go, you are free. The same people who tortured him, who killed his companions, who fought him for decades, he forgave them, and one by one they accepted Islam. Abu Sufyan, the military leader of the opposition, Ikrimah ibn Abu Jahl, the son of Islam's greatest enemy, Hind bint Utbah, who had chewed on the liver of Hamza radiallahu anhu, They all submitted, not because they were forced, but because they finally recognized the truth they had been running from. And the Prophet walked to the Kaaba, destroyed the idols one by one, and recited, "Truth has come and falsehood has perished. Indeed, falsehood is bound to perish." The house of Ibrahim was purified. The system the Quraysh built on shirk was dismantled. But Islam didn't destroy Makkah. It restored it. The pilgrimage continued, but now for Allah alone. The trade continued, but now blessed. The city remained the center, but now as the birthplace of Tawheed, not the marketplace of idols. So what does this mean for you? Why does any of this matter 14 centuries later? Because Surah Quraysh isn't ancient history. It's a diagnostic tool. It reveals the psychology of blessing and ingratitude. And if you're honest, you'll see yourself in this surah. Maybe not in the details, but in the pattern, because how many of us are living in blessings we didn't earn, surrounded by safety we didn't create, eating from provisions we didn't struggle for, and we've completely forgotten who gave us all of it. You wake up in a bed. You have a roof over your head. You're not fleeing war. You're not starving. You're not watching your family die of disease. That's safety. That's provision. Allah gave you that. Not your degree, not your job, not your parents' wealth, Allah. He could have placed you in Syria, in Palestine, in Yemen, in any of the dozens of places on earth where people are suffering right now. But He didn't. He gave you ease. So what are you doing with it? Are you worshipping Him, or are you worshipping your comfort? Because here's the test. The Quraysh used their blessings to fight the truth. They took the safety Allah gave them and used it to persecute the believers. They took the wealth Allah provided and spent it on opposing His messenger. They used their influence to spread falsehood, and Allah allowed it for a time, giving them chance after chance to turn back. But when they refused, when they chose their pride over His guidance, He humbled them, stripped their protection, exposed their weakness, and gave victory to a group of people who had nothing but faith. Now look at your life. You have time, more free time than any generation in history. But what are you doing with it? Are you using it to learn your deen, to grow closer to Allah, to serve your community? Or are you wasting it on screens, on entertainment, on distractions that will evaporate the moment you die? You have wealth. Maybe not millions, but you have more than billions of people on earth. You can buy food whenever you want. You have clothes, you have gadgets. That's wealth. Are you spending it in the path of Allah? Are you giving sadaqah? Are you helping those in need? Or are you hoarding it, upgrading it, chasing more while your brothers and sisters are starving? You have knowledge. You can read. You have access to the Quran in your own language. You can listen to explanations, attend classes, ask scholars questions. The Sahaba would travel for days to learn a single hadith. You can access entire libraries in seconds. But are you learning? Are you implementing? Or are you spiritually stagnant, knowing just enough to get by, but never growing, never transforming, never becoming who Allah created you to be? Here's the painful truth. Most of us are not using our blessings to worship Allah. We're using them to worship ourselves, our comfort, our desires, our egos. We say we believe in Allah, but our lives don't reflect it. We say, La ilaha illallah, but we have 1,000 mini-gods we bow to. The God of public opinion, the God of wealth, the God of status, the God of entertainment, the God of instant gratification. And we're so distracted by these idols that we don't even realize we've turned our lives into a modern Kaaba filled with everything except pure submission to Allah. Surah Quraysh is calling you to wake up. فَلْيَعْبُدُوا رَبَّ هَذَا الْبَيْتِ. So let them worship the Lord of this house, not worship casually, not worship conveniently, not worship when it's easy. Worship. Make your life an act of ibadah. Your work becomes worship when you do it with integrity and halal income. Your relationships become worship when you treat people with prophetic character. Your rest becomes worship when you use it to recharge for more service to Allah. Everything can be worship if your heart is aligned. But if your heart is attached to dunya, then nothing you do will reach Allah. Not your prayers, not your fasting, not your charity. Because Allah doesn't want your actions, He wants your heart. The secret of the trade routes wasn't just in the goods that moved. It was in the system that protected them. Ilaf. The agreements, the treaties, the trust. And Allah is teaching us that every system, every structure, every foundation you build in this life is either rooted in His obedience or in your rebellion. The Quraysh built a system rooted in shirk, wrapped in religious prestige and motivated by greed. And it collapsed the moment truth arrived. Because falsehood, no matter how sophisticated, no matter how profitable, is designed to perish. Ja'al haku wa zahaka al-batil, inna al-batila kana zahuka. Truth has come and falsehood has vanished. Indeed, falsehood is bound to vanish. But here's the mercy. When the Quraysh finally submitted, Allah didn't destroy them. He transformed them. Abu Sufyan became a Muslim. Khalid ibn al-Walid, the sword of Allah. Ikrimah ibn Abu Jahl became a Shaheed. The same people who fought Islam became the carriers of Islam. The same trade routes that funded opposition became the routes that spread the message. The same wealth that was used for shirk became the wealth that built masajid, funded armies, and supported the ummah. Allah doesn't just forgive. He flips the script. He takes your past and redeems it. He takes your sin and turns it into a story of transformation if you sincerely repent and submit. So if you've been living in ingratitude, start now. If you've been using Allah's blessings to disobey Him, stop now. If you've been distant, heedless, spiritually numb, return now. Because the door of Tawbah is open. Allah is not waiting to punish you. He's waiting to forgive you. He's waiting to see if you'll recognize the blessings, acknowledge the giver, and realign your life. And when you do, when you truly submit, He doesn't just forgive your past. He blesses your future in ways you can't imagine. The Quraysh thought their power came from their trade routes, but it came from Allah. And when they turned to Him, He gave them something far greater than wealth. He gave them purpose. He made them the companions of the final prophet. He made their city the Qibla of the entire world. He made their story eternal. That's what submission does. It doesn't take from you, it elevates you. It gives your life meaning beyond accumulation. It transforms your temporary blessings into eternal rewards. Surah Quraysh is 4 verses, but it's a complete philosophy of life. Provision and protection are from Allah. They are tests, and the only correct response is worship, not just ritual, but complete surrender. Every breath, every decision, every moment. You're either worshipping Allah or worshipping something else. There's no neutral ground. And the trade routes of your life, the pathways you travel daily, your routines, your habits, your relationships, they're either leading you